When a cop found the baby in the trash, he saved her life. Years later, he received the shock of his life. Police officer David Anderson was on duty one winter night in Ontario, Canada, when he heard a familiar sound that sent shivers down his spine, a baby crying. He followed the sound until he found himself in front of a trash can. As he peered inside, he couldn't believe his eyes. There, wrapped in a dirty blanket with little sheep on it, was a tiny baby, shivering and alone. David knew he had to act fast to save the child. Despite the freezing temperatures and the late hour, David sprang into action. He carefully lifted the baby out of the trash can and wrapped her in his jacket to keep her warm. He called for backup and ensured the infant received medical attention as soon as possible. David's determination to save the baby was unwavering. He stayed by her side until she was safely in the hands of medical professionals, and he made sure to keep tabs on her progress in the following days. For the officer, there was no question that this baby deserved a chance at a better life, and he was determined to make sure that it happened. After the baby was taken into medical care and then into an adoption agency, David knew he had to ensure that she would be taken care of properly. He worked tirelessly to find a good home for the child, and after many sleepless nights and long days, he finally found a kind young married couple who were willing to adopt the baby, who was later named Isabella Grace. David tried to keep in touch with the adoptive parents, making sure that they were providing a loving home for the baby, but after a few months, the family made the decision to move to the United States in search of new opportunities. Unfortunately, this move caused the family to lose touch with David, who had played such an instrumental role in Isabella's life. As the girl grew up, she often wondered about the kind police officer who had rescued her from the trash can so many years ago. Isabella longed to thank him for his selflessness and dedication to her well-being, but as time went on, she realized that her hero had become nothing more than a distant memory. The same was true for David. Although he had never forgotten the baby he had rescued and the family who had adopted her, life had moved on, and he had lost touch with them. Isabella had always known that she was adopted. As she grew up, she often wondered if she had any siblings or if her birth parents were still alive, but she never had any luck finding them, and eventually she stopped looking. Years went by, and Isabella became a successful journalist, traveling the world to cover important stories. But despite all her success, she still felt a nagging sense of emptiness, a feeling that something was missing from her life. One day, while researching a story, she stumbled upon a lead that piqued her interest. She discovered that there was a man named Ethan who had also been adopted around the same time as her, from the same agency, and had the same birth country. Isabella had a gut feeling that Ethan might have some information to unlock the mystery of her past. She tracked down Ethan and sent him an email explaining who she was and how they might be related. To Isabella's surprise, Ethan responded almost immediately. As they continued to correspond, Isabella and Ethan became close friends. They shared stories about their lives and families and discovered that they had a lot in common. One day during a conversation, Ethan came up with the idea to meet in person. Isabella was thrilled, but she didn't know that this meeting would reveal something new that would change everything. Over the next few weeks, Isabella and Ethan arranged to meet in person. Isabella excitedly hopped on a plane in search of more answers. She felt like she was getting very close to finding out the truth. When they finally met in Ontario, it was like they had known each other their whole lives. As Isabella and Ethan talked, they realized that they had more in common than they had originally thought. Ethan showed Isabella a picture of himself as a baby, and as soon as Isabella saw it, she gasped. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was a picture of a baby wrapped in a dirty blanket with little sheep on it, similar to the one that she had been found in all those years ago. Ethan was just as shocked as Isabella, and as they sat in stunned silence, a flood of emotions washed over them. They realized that there was a huge possibility they were siblings, separated at birth and adopted by different families. Isabella was stunned. As the shock of their newfound discovery wore off, Isabella and Ethan began to piece together the circumstances of their separation. They knew that they had been abandoned in the same park in Ontario, and they guessed that they had been left there by their birth parents, who, for whatever reason, were unable to care for them. Their first priority was to find out more about their birth parents and their family history. They started by tracking down the adoption agency. After some digging, they were able to confirm that they were indeed twin siblings. Isabella couldn't believe that she had a brother that she had never known about. It was both overwhelming and exciting at the same time. They were ecstatic to have found each other, but the fact that they had been separated for so long was heartbreaking. They also obtained some basic information about their birth parents, including their names and a few other details, but the information also revealed that both their biological parents were deceased. It was a bittersweet moment that had the siblings in tears. Neither of their adoptive parents had told them the details of their biological parents because they were never given the full details, as is usually the case when adopting a child. As the day was coming to an end, Isabella was happy she had found her long-lost brother, but she was also sad about the unforeseen reveal of their parents' deaths. Tired and filled with emotion, she decided it was time for her to catch the next flight out, but to her surprise, Ethan wouldn't let her go. "At least stay the night with me and meet my family," he said. "I'm sure you'll feel much better being around us than being alone right now." Ethan was so thoughtful that Isabella couldn't refuse his offer. It had been 25 years, so she could hardly say no. As they drove to Ethan's home to meet his family, Isabella was quiet, flooded with both thoughts of disappointment and happiness. She was suddenly regretting her decision. She felt she was imposing and didn't want to be an unpleasant guest. But as they pulled up on the driveway of the house, Ethan, who noticed her worried face, said with a big smile, "Hey, it'll be okay. We need time to process what we just found, and I understand how you feel more than you know. But right now, I can't let you be alone, sis. Family is everything, and I'm extremely happy that fate led me to find you. You're my family. Come on, let's go inside." Stepping inside the home, Isabella was welcomed by Ethan's wife and his twin sons. They were the splitting image of Ethan and, surprisingly, had the same red hair color as Isabella. They were her nephews, after all. Ethan's wife laughingly said, "We always wondered where the red hair came from, and now we know." But that was not the real surprise. It was who Isabella met next that was the most shocking of all the events of the day. In front of her stood a huge man with white hair and a familiar smile. Then Ethan said, "Meet my dad, David Anderson. Dad, this is Isabella Grace, and you'll never believe what we just found out." David, visibly shocked, asked, "Wait, what's your name?" Ethan, thinking his dad hadn't heard correctly, replied, "Isabella Grace, Dad, and she's—" David interrupted, "She's your long-lost sister." David's exclamation left Isabella and Ethan equally stunned. Noticing their confusion, David explained, "A few months after I found you, Isabella, someone reported another abandoned baby in the park. That baby was Ethan. Since I had lost track of you, I couldn't bear to hand him over to child services as I did with you, which is why my wife and I decided to adopt Ethan instead. I'm sorry I failed to keep in contact with you and wasn't able to reunite the two of you." Isabella and Ethan were taken aback by this new information about their past. All three hugged, extremely grateful that they had found each other after all these years. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video with your friends and family to spread the enjoyment. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.